Can you recall a moment where music lifted you beyond the ordinary, transporting you to a place of profound connection, of insight, of understanding, or of emotional clarity? Voices coming together, consuming almost electrifying energy, knowing glances exchanged, collective breath held, the feeling of suspense or relief, people on the edge of their seats or settled in to tangible and cooperative comfort, the agreement of silence or harmony, joy, grief, worry, or excitement, somehow shared, somehow present. These deep, powerful, resonant experiences can happen in so many musical spaces and contexts: experimental, traditional, religious, secular, at camp, at home, synagogue maybe, festivals, basements, jazz clubs. There's a kind of magic involved, a perfect combination of elements at just the right moment. It almost feels like one person more or one person less in the crowd could shift the entire experience an hour earlier, maybe even a minute earlier or later, and the light wouldn't be quite the same, wouldn't be quite as impactful. When the right chord with the right note strikes at the exact right moment, and it manages to speak to or capture the very things that people are feeling, whether or not they even realize it. On one hand, described in these terms, such shared musical experiences seem elusive. They embody profound mystery, luck, and serendipity, elements beyond our control. All we can do is be present and lean in when we sense their approach. On the other hand, I'm obsessed with wondering about the ingredients of these moments. What makes some musical experiences more than just pleasant, interesting, or good? What transforms moments into something spiritual, or as Rabbi Zemmel has recently been exploring, something transcendent? This is a question I reflect on constantly, weekly, daily, even hourly, in relation to my work at Temple Micah, as well as in my own spiritual practices. It's a question we explore as a worship team, a question we are exploring in the context of the Temple Micah Choir, a question we raise with professional musicians who join us in the sanctuary. What makes these moments transcendent? I always have to have a food metaphor, so here's a food metaphor. When baking bread, you can never know exactly how the dough will rise. It's impacted by the humidity, the climate, the draft, the temperature of the room. Some might even say the energy of the baker. And yet, there are still surefire ingredients and effective increments. The formula, mixed with the right elements of serendipity and mystery, yield a perfect crumb. I'm curious about what ingredients must be added to invite the mysterious magic of transcendent musical experiences akin to the perfect crumb. What elevates music beyond melodies and rhythms into something deeper? Like many of my mentors and colleagues at Temple Micah and beyond, I resonate with Larry Hoffman's premise that prayer is an art form. In his writings and in his classroom, Rabbi Hoffman has presented 3 avenues to inspire future clergy, though I'd argue they apply to all Jews, to see themselves as artists of the Jewish message. First one, I don't know if there's a particular order, but this is the order I decided on. First one, demand honesty and excellence. Second, pursue depth. And third, think bigly. Hoffman's perspective of worship as an art form offers ingredients to incorporate and engage with, to shape, nurture, and create the kinds of mysterious and shared moments I described before. How might these principles, excellence, depth and authenticity, and boldness, think bigly, shape our process of creating engaging worship at Micah? How can we foster experiences that, as Picasso said of art, wash away from the soul the dust of everyday life? On demanding honesty and excellence, I find myself reflecting on how, in art, beauty and craftsmanship can inspire awe. Whether it's the breathtaking precision of a painting or the flawless harmony of an ensemble playing in perfect tune and time, These moments are the result of years of dedication, practice, and discipline. When human effort culminates in something that feels rich, almost perfect, there is an undeniable force that draws us in, as if the convergence of mastery and intention creates a moment of beauty so complete it compels us to pause and recognize the deeper resonance within. But art is often more than beauty or craft. Think about some of the most famous paintings in the world. They diverge from beauty and craft. Great art manages to capture the soul of something far beyond the object or performance itself. One of my favorite artists, Imre Amos, a Hungarian Jewish painter whose works convey themes of Jewish exile, suffering, and spiritual longing, wrote, "It does not suffice to paint an object, a figure, or a landscape as just a motif. I believe it's the painter's task to project through his subjective vision the soul of his themes. In other words, the impact they have on their surroundings as entities that somehow stay alive even in death." Somehow stay alive even in death. Amos's description of the artist's task to ensure the soul of a theme lives on even beyond its earthly presence makes me think of klezmer music, revived after the near destruction of Eastern European Jewry, a genre whose melody breathes life into lost cultural traditions, ensuring the joy and sorrow of those communities continues to resonate through time. I also think of piyutim, ancient liturgical poems preserved by melodies that allow the spiritual yearnings of past poets to live on. I think of nigunim, yadai, yadai, wordless songs that manage to carry the emotional essence of their creators into new spaces and contexts. On one hand, in pursuing depth and authenticity, what elements of Jewish history, tradition, and evolution are essential to our self-understanding? Conversely, how must we pay attention to what the present moment demands of us, culturally, spiritually, and emotionally? The phrase "Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem," Chadesh Yameinu, Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem, sung at the conclusion of every Torah service, encapsulates a profound duality at the heart of the Jewish experience. The Hebrew root of the word kedem, kuf, dalet, mem, evokes not only a longing for the past, but it also paradoxically points to the future, conveying a sense of forward motion. This highlights a crucial building block of Jewish identity. Our history shapes who we are while propelling us into what we are yet to become. Henry Miller encapsulates this idea when he writes, "Art is not a thing, it's a way. It's a way of seeing the world, a way of expressing something that has always been there but has never been said in that particular way before." This notion aligns with Rabbi Hoffman's ingredient of thinking bigly. How do we communicate something old and true in ways that resonate with the present, capturing the novelties and uniqueness of each new moment in expressions that have never been conceived of before? In the realm of Jewish music, we see this intentionality manifesting in diverse forms through history. For example, the bold introduction of the organ into synagogues during the 16th century, which drew from broader societal and religious contexts, which elevated the keyboard as an instrument of prominence. Similarly, Debbie Friedman revolutionized the American Jewish music landscape, departing from the polished aesthetics of classical Reform Judaism, instead inspired by musical giants of her time, like Joni Mitchell. She courageously built upon and expanded existing traditions, infusing them with contemporary creativity and ultimately moving people in ways they would have otherwise never experienced without her leap of artistic faith. Next week, as we officially cross the threshold into a new year in the Temple Michael Sanctuary at the National United Methodist Church, you will hear some new sounds and musical textures in our worship service. In previous years, we've collaborated with choral instructors and centered the piano as our primary instrument. This year, however, a professional percussionist whose musical career spans the contemporary art world, from Broadway to jazz to pop, has joined our worship team. How will this new perspective help shape our worship? How will elevating percussion, a sound in some ways so obvious, so anciently human, and so integral to worship music across time, the heartbeat, the foundation, how will this texture inspire our souls to new heights this year? I hope you will also notice other instruments never before seen in our space, whose sounds evoke spiritual atmospheres in different contexts. These include French horn and the ethereal hammer dulcimer on Yom Kippur, a stringed instrument with over 100 strings originating in the Middle East and now common in folk music worldwide. These instruments will join cherished and familiar sounds of cello, violin, and piano, interacting with our vocal ensemble to explore new ways of uplifting and integrating vocal and choral music. And as we did last year, we'll continue to weave Sephardic textures and liturgy into our services, a rich cultural tradition that has been a part of the American Jewish experience for a long time, always, yet remains rarely represented in progressive spaces. With the pivotal role of music in our mission and our dedication to excellence in mind, as we enter a time of year particularly ripe for striving towards depth and mystery, I invite you to join me in exploring how can we open doors to artistic ventures that push the boundaries of traditional Jewish worship to new and exciting frontiers, while safeguarding and strengthening what is most essential and cherished? How can we keep our finger on the pulse of what resonates with and speaks to our contemporary souls? How do we serve as trailblazers, shaping and advancing the landscape of American Jewish synagogue worship culture? And in a moment that is complex and full of tension, where hope requires effort and grief demands space to dwell, I invite you to lean in and consider, what are the ingredients we need to let the true and the mysterious unfold? Shabbat Shalom.